Hello, hello, successful souls. We have a very special episode today for the Inner Feminine Beast interview. I cannot wait to meet today's guest. She and I connected through a friend of mine named Christine Jondali, and she hosted an online virtual summit, and she was a guest as I was as well. And right afterwards, I preach this all the time, and I think it's so important. We had a connection call. Truly, I can say that so much success that I've had in my business, not just by finding and connecting with ideal clients, but really through the power of proximity, surrounding myself with powerful women who understand the mindset, the embodiment of what it takes to be successful. So I had a beautiful proximity call with our guest today, and she is somebody that naturally, I was almost a little embarrassed. I just started talking, and usually connection calls can be 20, 30 minutes. We were hanging out for like an hour because I just had such a connection with her. The way that she speaks, the way that she listens, it really was super powerful. And I automatically was like, you know what? I can tell you have so much value to contribute to our listeners for the Spiritual Success Podcast. And of course, for our Facebook group, the Spiritual Success Sorority. So if you are a member in that Facebook group, remember, you get to see these live interviews before they come out on the podcast. Okay, so that's a special bonus of being in there. But I also think with today's topic and what we're going to be talking about when it comes to the psychology of voice and really helping to connect to people's subconscious when it comes to selling, that it's really perfect timing. We scheduled this interview months ago, but of course, that's what we always say, right? Hashtag, but of course, we have our upcoming event that's happening next week, which is the art of selling on camera. And it's all about authentically connecting to convert. So I'm going to be talking to you a lot about having that confidence and what to say and how to seed and how to really understand the difference between having a great coaching session, because I know you're an amazing coach. I know you're getting all the compliments every time you have a conversion event, but I'm here to really help you to understand that a presentation when it comes to sales is completely different than just a coaching session. So come hang out with me for that. But today, this is going to be a deeper spin into really understanding the power of your voice when it comes to making sales and scaling your business online. So let's get into it. I'm going to introduce my guest for today. I'd love for you to meet Tracy Goodwin. I'll pull her up in just a second. Before, I want you to learn all about her, okay? So Tracy Goodwin is the owner of Captivate the Room and creator of Psychology of the Voice. She has taught thousands of celebrities, professionals, entrepreneurs. Of course, hello, that's why she's an IFB interview. This lady is no joke. I'm so happy to have her here. And even Supreme Court justices, how to transform their voice and the lives of their listeners with their voice by stepping into the power of their natural voice so they amplify their authority and captivate the room. I love that branding, by the way, Captivate the Room, so good. Tracy's unique approach, Psychology of the Voice, gets to the core of limiting voice habits and transforms voices from the inside out. She holds a BFA from Baylor University and a master's degree as well. And she has a new and noteworthy podcast, which I can't wait to check out, Captivate the Room, and is highly sought after speaker for on stages around the globe. So without further ado, everyone, I'd love for you to come and welcome Miss Tracy Goodwin.
Hi. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you today.
Of course. Like I said, when you and I first connected, it was just so natural. And we had such fun conversations, not just about sales, not just about business, not just about presenting, but a lot about like metaphysics and how it all ties in together. So that's a perfect conversation for my show, Spiritual Success. So we're really happy to have you here today.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I think the very first question I had when I connected with you, and probably the first thing that our listeners are thinking as well, is what exactly do you mean by the psychology of the voice?
So when we think of voice, typical voice coaching, we think of slow down, speed up, pause, a technical type thing. What I discovered many, many years ago was, and through research and through the way I can hear, is actually what happens in our subconscious determines how we're going to use our voice. And every single sound that comes out of our voice is being processed in the subconscious of our listener. So when I say psychology of the voice, I'm talking about literally this is the back room of voice. What is happening psychologically that is creating the sound that's coming out of you, and is it working for you or not?
Okay, so can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Yes. So let's say there's so many different things I could plug in here, but the one phrase before we're 5 years old literally determines how we're going to use our voice forever. So I'm going to give you an example.
Yeah.
Family at the dinner table. Mom and dad are talking. The 3 kids, they have to wait until mom and dad are done talking. Dad, they're done talking. Dad looks at his watch and says, go. The child knows that there's only a limited amount of time. So his subconscious takes this in. The subconscious is trying to protect the heart. The voice is the orchestra of the heart. So the child goes, okay, I have a limited amount of time. I've got to hurry up and talk fast. And then 30 years later, the man says, everybody keeps telling me to slow down and I can't slow down. And I know I need to slow down. And I say, maybe you don't. We've got to unravel that story that says you only have a limited amount of time. And then I'm going to stop listening. That is calling the shots.
That's a really good example. I knew you had one ready to go. So that was good. You know what's so funny? I don't mind being vulnerable, but I have noticed this myself. I realized that my voice is a muscle and it's one that you work. And with anything, we know here on Spiritual Success that consistency and repetition can very often be the key to success. But I remember when I first started presenting and the butterflies and the nerves. It's so funny. I used to only wear turtlenecks when I presented because I would get so blotchy. Not anymore.
Yeah.
I've done it enough. But I remember when I first started speaking and when I'd be nervous out of nowhere, it wouldn't happen in normal life. But when presenting, I all of a sudden would have a lisp. Like it came out of nowhere when I would present. And lucky me, my name is Cynthia Stant. And my podcast is called Spiritual Success. And the Facebook group is the Spiritual Authority, right? Like that's what it would come out of my mouth. And I always was wondering, I was like, why is it only when I'm nervous and when I'm presenting that would happen? And I knew for a fact, just being an intuitive woman, there's something there in the subconscious. So I'm just curious if you had to break down just an idea of what that may be. You know, why do certain things happen when we present? Is it always based off something that's happening in childhood?
No, it could have happened yesterday.
Okay.
It literally, the first phrase locks in what I call the driver. And the driver is the thing that keeps coming up over and over again. But then we can have multiple stories, professors, teachers, neighbors, siblings, so much around siblings. Joe the doorman, you come in and you start to say something and he says, you can't do that. And your brain goes, okay. And now that story's built. And so now immediately the brain starts telling the muscle memory, hold that sound in. So it doesn't have to be a deep dive and it doesn't have to be some traumatic experience. Okay. Maybe you started to say something about scissors in kindergarten and a teacher went, stop bothering me. And your brain went, okay. And then there was a holding back of a sound that turned it into a lisp.
I could totally see that. That's so interesting. So, you know, this is something I want to make sure people understand as well. A lot of my girlfriends, again, I believe in power proximity. I like to be the smallest girl in the room. So many of my girlfriends are extremely successful, multiple 7-figure entrepreneurs, some of my clients as well. But when I work with them, I notice a lot of times we'll be making appointments and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't meet at that time. That's when I'm meeting with my voice coach. And I'll say to them, I don't have a voice coach. Do I need a voice coach? And they would explain to me, oh, the reason I have a voice coach is because I have, you know, a top 10 podcast. I have, you know, so many coaching sessions and I've done so much content that literally my voice is starting to break and it's starting to, you know, my throat, I'm having issues. This is completely different than what you help with because it's not just working the muscle and building that strong, you know, because that we're athletes when we're business owners and when we're creating content. This is us performing. It's like a voice coach for a singer, you're a speaker. But you are not just helping with that. It's more so the connection to the psychology, just so that when you are actually selling, that you are, go ahead, explain more. You're connecting with the subconscious of the buyer, correct?
Absolutely. And we can take that example and there's no criticism. It's all just different methodology. I can say, okay, you're losing your voice. that is the symptom. I want to look at the why. What is the backstory? Now we'll fix the issue, but I need to know what the backstory is, because if we don't eradicate the backstory, the issue is going to keep happening, because it's that story, that driver that is locking it up or wearing you out, or maybe there's a disconnect from the breath. And I want to know why. Why are you holding your breath? Are you thinking, well, I might be bothering them? And it could be microscopic. I work in sounds the size of a grain of sand. So when we go into selling, there could be some little tiny something about, well, I don't know if they can afford me. Well, there could be a tiny sound in there coming from that story that's in the muscle memory, and it comes out and they subconsciously process it.
Yeah.
And so we are looking at the literal symptom, but I want to look at the disease.
That's so good. I always say that I believe we are spirits having a human experience, and our listeners are really building their awareness. They are asking the questions. They are studying metaphysics, but a lot of people aren't. But the thing is, whether people are conscious of their subconscious or not, it's still there. And so it's important that you are speaking to and really connecting with your ideal client and being aware of what it is that you're putting out there. So I'd like to dive into that just a little bit more. But before I do, I would love to learn a little bit more about, how did you even get started with this? Like, where did you and how did you discover your passion for the psychology of the voice?
Well, for anybody listening that struggles with embracing a purpose, this is for you. I got into it kicking and screaming, honestly, like a mule being dragged through the sand, because ironically, I was raised in a family where children were to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
Sit there and look pretty, don't say anything. And because of that, there were catastrophic type events that happened to me in my life, and shut down my voice. Actually, I became an actor, and I made my living doing television commercials because that was a platform where I could be heard.
Right.
I was put in front of all these voice coaches, that I think the greatest masters of our time. And I knew there was something more, because I knew I could hear voices. I knew, but I didn't want people to think I was crazy, but I could work with technique. But I could literally go, oh, I get it. You broke up with your boyfriend and you don't think anybody's ever going to love you again. And so that's why you don't know what you're going to do, but you think you're going to move back to the East Coast. And I could hear these layers of sound. And then I could hear the North Star of the heart. I could hear the real sound. And so I could unlayer people really fast. But in my mind, I was still, are you kidding me? People are going to think you're a joke.
Been there.
Right? Yeah. And finally, and this was Yellow Pages days, Cynthia. This was not Instagram, Facebook. People kept finding me. Executives, Fortune 500 companies, celebrities, Mike Nichols. I taught for him in New York. And I finally one day went, okay, I get it. I get it. This goes all the way back to the day I was born. Yeah. This is what I was meant to do. And then it was over. I was obsessed. I was obsessed with researching it and testing it. And I mean, now it's been a 30 plus year body of work that I just am obsessed with.
I love that. That's how I feel as well. It is like when you find your passion, you're just obsessed with it, that no matter whatever happens, you're never going to quit, because you're going to keep going. Like, this is what you're born to do. It's your purpose. I love that. This is really random, and I'm just curious. Do you meditate at all?
I do.
You do? Mm-hmm. When you first started noticing your gift, really becoming aware of it, was there any correlation with your meditation practice? I'm curious.
Well, when I first really said, okay, I get it, I can hear what I can hear. No, I was still a doer then. Okay. And I didn't meditate then. And so I went into research and testing. And so for 10 years, actually, I tested, is what I heard what was being processed in the subconscious of the listener. Now, now after that, I can tell you 100% it plays into my ability to coach quickly, because I just get a download. I mean, it's just, before I even work with somebody in the day, I will already know where we're going. I already know. It'll be like, oh, really? Okay. And I go straight in and it nails it every time.
I love that, because that's how it was for me too. So nobody ever actually taught me how to sell. I just enjoyed it because one, every time that I was really showing up, and I realized it's through serving that these people were having better experiences, and it was fun. I was providing a beautiful experience for people. At the same time, the more happy they are, the more you're giving, the more you receive. I was making more money. But what I realized is it was an emotional connection. It was really just like being in your authenticity, and really serving is where people would earn your trust. And that's like so important. But when I started becoming a metaphysical woman and I started meditating, that's when all of a sudden, like you said, the downloads started coming. And for me, I always say that's me connecting to my higher self. I refer to her, as you can see over your head, your inner feminine beast. So it was when I started connecting to her that it was more than just, oh, this feels right. I had that knowingness and hearing as well. I would listen not only to what people were saying, I could hear what they weren't saying. And then take that to that emotional state where they could really see the end result. And when you people buy off of emotion, then back up logic, right? So I think that's very interesting. And thank you for sharing that. I know that came out of left field, but I knew intuitively that a woman that meditates. And again, one of the most important things I recommend all the time. Okay, so you teach presenters, many of which are entrepreneurs, what to do right when it comes to presenting. But I am curious, what are the top few things that you see presenters do wrong when it comes to captivating the audience?
There are several things. So just stop me if I get on a tear. Okay.
I want to know.
You know, I don't think of voices as bad. I think of there's voices and there's voices we can take to another level. And that's what I'm all about is, okay, can we take that 6-figure entrepreneur and turn her into a 7 or a 7 into an 8? What are the microscopic sounds? And the things that the world oftentimes tells us to do are what I say create the biggest problem. And one of them is, let me rehearse it. Let me practice it and practice it and practice it. And everybody said, oh, you got to practice, just practice more. And I say, I don't let my people practice.
Yeah.
I let them do it once. I let them know the words. But the minute you put that practice and rehearsing, you're going to do several things. When it's go time, you're going to try to recreate. You're going to try to draw from something in the past, or you're going to be thinking about the past, or you're going to put the grip on. And the minute that happens, your voice can't work and I can't hear your heart. And it's like a bulletproof glass comes down. I see you and I hear you, but I cannot touch you. That is a destroyer. The second thing I would say is stop trying to make it about the words. And I don't want to go against the grain of it's certain words that you need to say, and all of that is critical, but you've got to release the grip and trust that you're going to have those words. Because anytime you are up in your head, I've got to recreate, I've got to have the words, I got to get this right. Perfectionist friends, it's over, because I just can't get there with you, and it is microscopic. It's going down subconsciously. So those are a couple of things.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. One of the top questions I get, because I created my multiple 6-figure company in 6 months just from going live. And, I like to present. We often have masterclasses, workshops. And one of the things people ask me all the time is like, Cynthia, do you have a teleprompter? I'm like, no. I mean, first of all, I'd be like this the whole time. And then they're like, do you spend hours rehearsing? Absolutely not, because then I'm not going to be in that flow state. And or do you have a script? If I had a script, I'd be like this the whole time. Like how I read your intro today, clearly I was reading, because I really cover everything. But no, I mean, that takes away from the presentation. But then it might not be perfect, Cynthia. Well, actually, I feel like when it goes kind of not perfectly planned, that's when it's really that authenticity. And that's what people are craving, is authenticity. So much of our world is pre-recorded. Everybody's, pre-recording, and they're sitting on their Ferraris with their duck lips, like all the things. And I think people are craving realness. I joke around, but it's summertime and I'm a mompreneur. So my kiddos are here right now. They're being quiet, but it's very often they'll come in on camera, but people like that. They understand she's a mom, but it's also, like you said, it's being in that flow state when I get out of my head and I just allow my heart, what's wanting to come to me and through me, come out of my mouth, that I almost blank out. I don't even realize what I'm saying. And then I come back and I'm like, damn, that was good.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
it. I know what you mean.
That's it. You get in your zone. And I want to say something to what you just said about, but I've got to get it perfect, Cynthia. The question I have for the audience is, how do we know if it's perfect?
Exactly. I see that happen all the time too. Not as much with presenting on camera, but a lot with in person, where people will say things like, sorry, I'm just nervous. Okay, I need a sec. Okay, now I'm good. We're like, nobody in this room knew you were nervous. We had no idea.
That's right.
That's how you know you're shining, when you are nervous, because it means that you care and that you're coming with all your emotions and people can feel that. So you got to be your inner feminine beast. You just got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing. Get out of your comfort zone. So good.
Well, and it becomes such a permission slip for the audience. Let's say I messed up right now. It would be a permission slip for the audience to go, wow, this is what she does for a living, and she just glitched. It must be okay for me to glitch too. It makes it very relatable. Now, I'm not saying, okay, just go out there and mess it all up, but we've got to release the grip. Mm-hmm. It's about an invitation. I want you to know who I am. I'm inviting you in. But if I'm focused on making it a beautiful voice and doing everything right, then you're not invited in, but I'm perfect.
I absolutely adore it. I'm telling you, I knew for a fact that you and I just had such a connection. You said something so important. And I talk about this with the ladies in the VIP Inner Circle, which is my online, my business consulting mastermind. I always talk about the words that you use really attract a certain vibration. And so I have a big question for you. But for instance, I never say, oh, now it's time for the pitch. Like, nobody wants to be pitched to. And the feeling behind that doesn't feel good. It's an invitation to plug into your power. I love that. And for my events too, I never say free. Come to my free event. No, it's my complimentary event. It's more luxe. It has a feeling behind it. So this is where it's really interesting. Hashtag, but of course, last night I was working with my clients in the spiritual success experience. And right now we're covering universal laws. And specifically, the law that we covered last night. By the way, any SSE ladies here watching live with me, let me know. Pay attention. This is a big question. Last night we were talking about the law of vibration. And right before we got in here today, I said, do you know anything about universal laws? And you said, well, of course I do. Of course. So the thing about the law of vibration is that many people are familiar with the law of attraction. But the law of attraction is a secondary law to the law of vibration. And if you think about your voice is such a powerful vibration. What you put out there is what you're going to get back. And what I have learned is that when you are teaching and you're presenting to sell, you have to remember, you're not just sucking money out of the sky. Tracy, if you have that magic vacuum that just sucks money out of the sky, can I please borrow it? Because I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. What happens is when you show up in your power and you speak with authority and you speak with conviction and you speak with just authenticity, you attract people in their power who are looking for that. Because remember, when you're making a sale, you're not just attracting money, you're attracting people in their power with money. Where does the money come from? It comes from people. So you standing in your power is what attracts people who are in their power and willing to invest. So I love to know, what do you have to say about that? What can you contribute to that? Anything you can speak to on that?
So as you were, I knew like you said, we've discussed this before we jumped on the call, but I think as I was listening to you, what kept coming up in my mind to share was something I call heavy versus light.
Okay.
And this is a vibrational tone. Raw negative emotion, I will say, is the weakest choice you can make. Yet it is generally our go-to, especially in relationships. It is weak, but it feels strong. If I go to a heavy sound and I'm heavy, so Cynthia, what are you feeling right now? Are you feeling like this is maybe a good thing that you want to do? You hear the heaviness.
Yeah.
If I take all the weight off my voice, it's a totally different vibration. And now, Cynthia, what are you thinking? Is this something that you might like to do? I didn't change the words.
Exactly.
I changed the weight. Mm-hmm. And yet, when we're focused and I all this goes back to noise in the head. I've got to get this sale and I've got to get you to the end and I've got to get you to the thing and I got to make it perfect. And I got to heavy is a vibration that will cost you exponentially. That's one of the fastest things we need to do is get you in light. And it is from, are you subconsciously in the outcome trying to get me there? If you are, then you're going to have a push vibration to your voice, and you have to work from, of course, the outcome's yours. Why wouldn't it be? Literally changes the weight of the sound, which is vibration. So that's one thing I could say about it.
Yeah. Well, my listeners know my least favorite word is the word try. And we don't realize that when we speak these things, you have to speak your truth, or otherwise that's what you get back. When you say try, you're not owning it, you're not claiming it. And whatever you say will be, always will be. It's not here, it's not right now. And so sometimes we self-sabotage ourselves with the things we say. So for instance, I always say, instead of saying, oh, I don't want to be overweight, I enjoy being fit. And it's a completely different feeling. It's that heavy versus that light that you're speaking to. So I agree with that. I call it positively charging, because it's like a magic wand. Wherever you put the focus is where the momentum goes. So focus on the desire. I'm curious. This is a random thought, but one of the things that I've noticed about myself, because I'm very intentional, everything I put out there, I'm looking for a return. I'm very understanding of what I'm putting out, because a cause always creates an effect. I go first and I get a response. So I read the response. Does that work? Does it not? Do I want to do something different? I notice a lot of presenters and coaches, when it comes to sale, they speak a lot about the pains of people. And I know that the pains exist, but personally, I love to focus on the desires. So instead of saying, I know you're going through this, and I know you have that wrong and this and wrong, it's like, I know you desire this outcome. I'm curious, do you have anything to share about that as well?
Definitely. Okay. I think of, and of course, I am not even in the realm of your expertise from the selling perspective, but I do have a lot of thoughts around voice and selling. Okay. And exactly what you're saying, what I tell my students is, I need to hear the experience. I'm not worried. I don't want to hear any strong arming. I don't want to hear any pain points. I don't even talk to that. And I teach my people not to talk to that. I want to have a conversation and hear the experience of what it's like to be with you. What are you? I want to hear that you're 13 steps ahead of me. I want to hear that you felt my pain before and you're on the other side of it. I want to hear that you get me. I already know what my pain points are. I want to know you're my person.
Yes. I call that I always say to my listeners, who are you? Who do you want to be? And what is the difference? Most importantly, what are you going to do about it? Because when you're selling, what's important to do is help your ideal client realize that you know where they're at. Okay. They don't talk about that because they know where they're at too. Right. But can you show them that you also know where they want to be?
That's critical.
That you are the bridge that fills that gap.
Critical. And you'll find this interesting. I think I actually did a research study on this many, many years ago. Ideal clients are seeking sounds subconsciously. They don't even know they're seeking it. But if I go to get a health coach, I already know what I have to have, what's going to work for me. And so subconsciously, as I'm listening to this person, I'm assessing in 30 seconds if they are my person. And if there's something that I'm not seeking, they're not my person. Now, here's where it gets tricky. They might have been my person, but they weren't revealing it in their voice.
I think that's something that really changed my performance too, as far as my results in my presentations. Is it wasn't just, teaching and come for this result. It was opening up and storytelling, the power of storytelling. One of my most recent events that I had was selling, here's my S words. I like alliteration too. It was sales strategies made simple, right? There you go. And, but I gave this whole story about how online and creating these online presentations is not really any different than what it's like making sales in person. And I gave an example of how I used to sell bourbon and how that experience was and how I took that knowledge and then applied it online. But what was fun about it was you got to hear all the things I went through, the journey that I went through, all the no's that I got, the things I did to get creative, and how I took everything I learned there to create my business. And I had so many people reach out to me and say, Cynthia, I've never heard that story. It makes me understand you. And it also shows me why you're the expert that you are. storytelling. So, so, so important, because I think that's when you're storytelling, it can't be rehearsed. You're right. That's where that flow state comes from. So,
oh yeah, critical. In fact, I was with some of my students the other day, and that's what we were working on. And they, all of them realized, hold on a minute, I don't tell enough stories, and we don't. And I think a lot of that is because we get a belief that says people don't care. People don't want to hear about my story. And that's that. Stop deciding what we're thinking.
yes.
Stop deciding what we're thinking. What do you want to show up and deliver? I want to know you. You can never know what I'm thinking. So don't try to control what I'm thinking. Show up as you.
Tracy, I don't know why, like, I feel emotional. Like, I have like zings inside me, because I'm telling you, there's something special between you and I. We haven't talked that much, but you're saying all the things that I share all the time. Because I say to people, my listeners, I say, we like to dedicate podcasts. We like to connect with you before we ever do any workshops or masterclasses, because I'm not here to present what I think you want to hear. I want to present what I know you want to hear, And then a lot of times, like you said, one of the things that I work with my clients on is stop making problems into problems that aren't even problems. Right? That happens when you're not controlling your thoughts and your thoughts are controlling you. You're too much in the future. You're too stuck in the past. Just be here, just be you, and plug into her, your IFB. And like, that's where you stand in your power. So I loved this. This was so much value for today. I think, again, it's just perfect timing of the things I was discussing with my clients and what we have coming up. Is there anything before I share with people how they can connect with you that you'd like to kind of wrap up with? Any like last words?
Well, I want to say something about what you just said. You said about past and future. And when you think about past and future, that may not be what you think about around voice. I want to bring this full circle to where we started. And I said, okay, this is, maybe I'm going to give you a technique, but it's not about the technique. When you are in the past, you are vocally dragging in things that are going to work against you. There are sounds that are going to come out of your voice that you don't even recognize that are going to cost you. When you are in the future, the same thing happens. Your voice, I cannot hear the orchestra of your heart when you are there. You are like the wavy balloon guy on the side of the road when you are there. You got to be right here in the conversation with me. And then your voice will go to work and I'll hear you're my person. But you got to get out of the past and the future.
Mic drop. That was so good. I had to pick up my pen and write this down immediately. Orchestra of your heart. Wow. Hell yeah. That's awesome. Well, I loved having you today. And so our listeners can follow you and, learn more about your services and hear about anything you have going on. Where's the best place? We're going to post it, but I'd love for you to share it to the listeners as well. Where's the best place that people can connect with you?
Everything is Captivate the Room. CaptivateTheRoom.com is the website. Captivate the Room on Instagram and Facebook. Everywhere you go, it's Captivate the Room. So that's, any of those places.
And then you're on Facebook as well. And that's how we connected. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This was a really special episode. I really enjoyed this. I loved your company. I promise. I feel like there's so much more for you and I together. So I love
I know. I think we just scratched the surface. So I just adore you, and I'm so glad we're connected, and there is so much synchronicity. It's stunning. But thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Of course. And then for everybody who is watching, as a reminder, we do have next week my special event, The Art of Selling on Camera, all about authentically connecting to people to convert. So if you'd like to learn more about that, let me know. You'll be sitting with my ladies inside the VIP Inner Circle. It's a session that I completely created for them, but I feel that it's too good. So I want to make it open to the public. So come sit with us in this 2-day session. And again, Tracy, thanks for being here. Everybody,
thank you.
Acknowledge it, embrace it, see it through.